Today's a heavy show, so before we get started, I just want to let everybody know that Jer is wearing a fluorescent day glow yellow shirt. So if you want to see it, check out our Instagram at Daily Detroit.
Well, I'm so glad that you gave people proper warning about my shirt choices.
Yes, I mean, if we lost power, we could use your shirt to get us to where we need to go.
Remember when I had that wide striped Tommy Hilfiger back in the 90s?
I
was so
remember.
proud of that thing.
I do remember that.
It was so bad. Anyway, I'm Jared Stays, and across the table from me,
Cheyenne Oserini.
and welcome to your Daily Detroit for Tuesday, May 3rd, 2022. There are a lot of stories to talk about today. Some on the more serious side, some a little bit more fun and interesting. But I think I know where we need to begin.
We're going to have to talk about it. It's not something fun to talk about, but it's big news.
Yeah, and we don't normally cover national stuff, but it is important because, I cannot overemphasize the impact of the probable decision by the Supreme Court to overturn Roe versus Wade. And for me, we're going to focus completely on Michigan because that's what we do here. We do all local things. And I want to tell people that a little bit of the background on what's going on. Then we can discuss what's happening. And if this does come to pass, now there was a leaked draft given to Politico of a very conservative justice's opinion that he would be basically writing in the majority, telegraphing in an almost unprecedented leak what the decision will be coming up later in the next couple of months. And basically it says Roe versus Wade will be gone. What does that mean here? Well, thanks to a 1931 law, abortion would likely become a felony here in all cases except to preserve the mother's life. And that felony would extend to abortion providers. There are no carve-outs for rape or incest, so it would become one of the toughest laws in the country. Now, from a reporting point of view, this is in opposition to what the supermajority of Michiganders want, with recent polls showing that 2/3 want to keep Roe and only 19% want to get rid of it. 2/3 of people in Michigan also want to repeal the 1931 law. Now, the current administration, Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Attorney General Dana Nessel, they're pledging not to prosecute, but that is a very thin kind of line
Right.
to look at, depending on who's where. Democratic prosecutors in counties have said they're not going to do anything. But obviously, there's a mix of prosecutors in different counties and different places. This all ties into a story from about a month ago when Governor Gretchen Whitmer used her authority to request a ruling from the Michigan Supreme Court. This is something that is unique kind of in the state of Michigan, where a governor can say, hey, I want to know about this now.
Right.
And they're really pushing for that. At the time, people were kind of befuddled. And that kind of leads into my entire thoughts around this, where people seem to be taken by surprise. I think a lot of people assumed that it was settled law. But if there's anything I've learned covering things for the last 20 years, a judicial decision is not a law. And I think a lot of people kind of got caught off guard by this. I wanted to get your thoughts, Cheyenne. I know that you have a different perspective than I do, and I kind of wanted to stick to more of like the facts on the ground.
When I saw this news break last night, I was just like, okay, here we go. If you are paying attention to politics, if you're paying attention to anything in the Supreme Court, you kind of have seen what is happening, especially with the Trump-appointed justices, especially with the loss of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And, there were a lot of people who are on the pro-choice side who were putting up like giant like alert bells, right? Like this is going to be a problem.
You would have to be daft to not think that this was the end goal clearly stated by Republicans. And this is not a partisan statement.
No.
Like this is just the facts. It's clear as day.
For the past like 50 years since Roe was decided, there has been like a long lineage of anti-abortion advocates and people who have wanted to put forth this larger bans and to take away a woman's right to choose, because Roe was decided based on like the constitutional right to privacy. Like you have no right to know what a person is doing for themselves. And so the right to contraceptions, birth control, IUD, all forms of birth control. And then even same-sex marriage, right? Like, there has been a clear litany of, like, people who have been trying to go after Oberfeld and to, like, overturn that decision as well.
To me, it reinforces the importance of local, right? Because in order for a law to be passed, you would need a local representative to do that. And right now, there are not the votes to make that happen. And especially in the state of Michigan,
Yes.
with the Republican-controlled legislature. Now, things may change in 2022 with the new districts. I think, and I said this to the editor of Our Detroit, my quote didn't make it into the piece, but a lot of people agreed with my thoughts on this. I understand a print piece has to get edited way down. But I said that this is going to be the bombshell issue that people are not expecting for 2022. It is going to have huge local impacts because you're going to motivate a lot of voters. Look, you cannot do something that 2/3 of people support. You cannot go against that coming out electorally unscathed. And the districts are going to be a lot more balanced this year. And to be honest, I know most people don't care about politics.
No, but they do
I'm
care
fully
about,
aware.
But they do care about what could happen to them.
Yes, exactly. And this is the difference with an issue like this versus other ones where you're going to see people vote like they did in a presidential election because, and maybe even more, because there are people coming out of the woodwork, and I see it like all day on social media and texts. I thought this was settled. I thought this was done. And I think that's a popular misconception that, you know, you and I, we've talked about things like this on the show before, but I think we need to buckle up for a very rough political season between here and November.
I want to put out there, just because if Roe gets overturned and abortion becomes illegal around the country, it doesn't mean that abortion will go away. It means safe abortions will go away. It means women and people with uteruses who are pregnant and do not want to have a pregnancy, or who cannot hold a pregnancy because of some sort of medical problem.
People forget how many people do not carry pregnancies to term for reasons that are not of their choosing.
Right. For miscarriage. I mean, oftentimes this could like make miscarriage illegal.
Well, and rich people are still going to go get abortions. How many stories have we seen in the news where you see anybody, and you know, I'm somebody who I will call out people who are either side of the political divide, and how many times you see people who are these right-wing standard bearers
who are family, pro-family.
And like, to be honest with you, I don't care who you sleep with, what you do, but be honest about it.
Right.
And this is what annoys me about it, is that what this is going to do is screw over poor people.
Exactly.
Because rich people are just going to go to a neighboring state. They have the resources to shove things under the rug. That's what this is. This is also very anti-poor.
It's anti-poor, it's anti-marginalized people, and it is going to affect the BIPOC community the most.
We're going to move on to another story in a minute, but Cheyenne, like, you have been in the studio feeling away.
I'm feeling very attacked as a person with a uterus. And I know a lot of people who have uteruses. I know a lot of men who are like very pro-choice as well are all feeling very scared right now. And I want to say that I'm with you, and I want to say that if Roe gets overturned, then you need to go to the ballot box and you need to vote for people who will make a law that will protect abortion rights across the country and across the state.
Staying with state news for a little bit, the top 3 Republican candidates for governor have serious petition problems. That's according to Nolan Finley over to the Detroit News. And when it comes to Republican watching, he's somebody that, you know, you got to read if that's the case.
Yep.
Most interesting to me is that the most in danger of being bounced from the ballot is former Detroit Police Chief James Craig. Although the other top candidates have issues too, Perry Johnson and Tudor Dixon. I just am kind of stunned by this because I'm somebody who knows people on both sides of the aisle. Admittedly, more of my contacts are more with old school Republicans. And if there's anything regardless of ideology, I'm used to political apparatuses that are competent. And to me, if you can't even get a petition together, now there's different severities of these issues, and you can go to our newsletter, dailydetroit.substack.com. We'll have links to all these stories. If you can't handle these basics, it makes me worry you can't handle running the rest of the thing. And I would say that about a Democrat, too.
Yeah. It makes me really wonder who they hired to run their campaigns.
I mean, this isn't the first flub up either.
No, there was multiple flub ups. And also, I want to point out that James Craig said, well, I didn't know how petitions work. And it's like,
hire someone who does. I mean, that's the dirty little secret. Like, you don't need to know everything,
No.
but you need to show me that you're competent enough to put together a staff that does.
yes.
All right, let's get back to the region. There are some stories that are just, they're something else. The feds have busted a weed vending machine on the side of a house in Detroit over at Fenkel and Medital. This thing has been operating for 4 years, thanks to 43-year-old Marcellus Cornwell, who was pulling in $2,000 a day. Now, this thing took credit cards and Apple Pay. This wasn't even like you put the money in. I mean, there was cash too.
There was cash too.
And I'm linking to a video in the newsletter that you just got to see, where the person just rolls up. And I don't have confirmation of this, but I don't think the authorities got a hold of this until it went viral on TikTok.
It was touchscreen.
The whole thing.
I mean,
I'm mad that this entrepreneurship did not get harnessed into something more legal. Now, the big part of why he's being pulled in is that he was found with 18 weapons that he's not supposed to have due to previous convictions.
yes.
I also tells me that somebody needs to set up a weed vending machine.
I mean, I did see that there are weed vending machines, maybe in California.
Okay.
So, I mean, it is a thing, but
this one's right next to the side door.
Yeah.
Like, it's right there. Like, it is absurd. I have to give him points for entrepreneurship, not points for the illegality. Bold. But, this is the town where kangaroos run down the streets.
I mean, this was a real homegrown operation.
I'm going to see your pun and raise you one.
Yes.
As a pair of Wayne County road employees are generating income fraudulently by selling generators. They've managed to fleece Wayne County taxpayers out of $1.7 million
Oh,
for 596 generators that they then sold online. And they were showing like how their house in like Bloomfield Hills or whatever. I mean, they've been employees for a long time. What other hustles have they had?
one was like 36 years and the other one was like 20 years working for Wayne County. And yeah, like how many other schemes have there been?
I mean, the most effective schemes are often the simplest.
Yeah, but I feel like maybe this one got a little too big.
Yeah.
And
It's like the movie Office Space, right? Where you have that little thing they did that took like a cent or a quarter of a cent, and all of a sudden it's like millions of dollars and they have to go on the run.
yeah. So don't steal generators. Don't do this. It's bad. Okay.
Stealing bad, 101.
Yes.
The Imagine Theater in Royal Oak is getting a Caesars Sportsbook Lounge. Now, I know they've been doing some betting there since the end of last year, but partnering with Caesars really kind of ups the game for them. There's a couple of 2-story tall TV screens. The owner says that their goal is to capture an audience other than the typical moviegoer. How do you feel? Are you half full, half empty on a sportsbook in a movie theater?
Well, I guess considering the fact that I used to live in Las Vegas,
So I got to ask you.
I'm used to movie theaters and sports books being in the same place because oftentimes the casinos, like the neighborhood casinos in Las Vegas, had the movie theaters. So you had to go to the casino to go to the movies.
So this is not a first in the nation like they're claiming.
No. I know like online sports booking is like the new big thing, but I'm a purist at heart when it comes to sports book. And you kind of lose something when you're using your phone, which is there is no actual, like you don't go to a counter and you don't put in a bet at Imagine Theater. Like you're doing everything by your phone on the Caesars app. So I feel like you kind of lose something when you're not able to walk up to like the sports book and be like, slap down 20 and be like, give me whatever.
Yeah, because you've done all this before.
Well, I generally don't. I never really did sports books, but also like with this sports book was the race book. So I would often go and bet the ponies because I grew up betting the ponies. And so I have a friend who still does work at the sports book. And I don't know, there's just something about sitting around with a bunch of people who are watching a game and they're like, things are open. And
it's a vibe.
It is a vibe. And so, I mean, I think it is good that they're trying to pivot.
They got to bring people in. Movie ticket sales are down nationally. They, of course, cratered during the pandemic, but they had already been going down. Imagine is a huge investment in downtown Royal Oak. We just recently covered all that stuff with the main art. I mean, ironically to me, I feel like the main art kind of programming brings something more interesting to me because I haven't gone to a movie in forever.
I mean, I will say the one thing I'm talking about main art, I was able to see the absolutely fabulous movie at the main art when it came. And I mean, it was the only theater who was showing it. I mean, no one is going to put, Ab Fab on the big screen at an Imagine theater.
All right, before I let you go, I think you ought to know about this, Cheyenne.
Got another pun.
I know. If we haven't lost half our listeners by the end of this episode, I don't know what else. Anyway, a North American river otter has been spotted in the Detroit River. This is the first time in a century. I am super excited that like this, like the geeked out 14-year-old kid who's got like his nature book.
Yep.
Like I want to go to the riverfront and check this out. I mean, these are beastly like characters, these North American river otters, and they have been gone from our area for a long time. And I think it is a great sign of the improvement of the health of the river because, I mean, we've been mucking this thing up for a long time within industry. I mean, newer residents here may not realize, like when I grew up in Detroit and I took the 25 bus down on Jefferson, you would be going by auto plants. You would be going by cement plants. Like it is only a recent behavior to do what other places have done and kind of reclaim the riverfront. And it's been a absolutely beautiful thing. And I think part of that is the river otters, is the beavers, is the bald eagles. There is a way that we can strike a balance here and have something really beautiful because that's part of why people settled here.
I am so excited to see the river otters. Just like I was excited to see the beavers like on the riverfront and them like walking around. Like, weren't they around the Valade? Isn't that where they were at?
No, they weren't by Valade. They were down by the carousel.
That's right. So they were by the carousel and they were just like walking around and people were like, oh my God, it's a beaver. So I'm super excited to see the river otters because I love river otters. They're just so cute. So welcome back to Detroit.
You know what? Maybe we need a River Otter Daily Detroit theme shirt.
Oh, maybe.
It's all the news you ought to know.
Or you ought to talk about Daily Detroit.
And with that, we are done for today. I hope you're still with us. A quick reminder and thank you to Laura, who joined us as a member at patreon.com/dailydetroit. We've got our events coming up June 4th. You got Pride. June 10th, our 1000th episode celebration.
Yay!
Just a lot going on. I need to make sure to make events on the social medias and all that stuff for it.
We do.
Anyway, of course, if you've got feedback for the show, dailydetroit@gmail.com, our email newsletter, dailydetroit.substack.com. I'm Jared Stays.
And I'm Cheyenne Oserini.
Remember that you are somebody, and we'll see you around Detroit.